So you're all excited to hear about my electronic RAM and where I'm going to extend it. Well, that's not going to be happening today. Instead, I'm going to make a place where I can make some steamed hams.
At this time of year, at this time of day, in this part of the country, localized entirely within your kitchen.
Yes.
May I see it?
Only if you watch the whole episode. Now, while I put a lot of effort into the research for the things that I do, there are inevitably going to be times when I miss things. The result in my last video was overlooking the caravan and RV regulations. Now, these state that a double pole socket is required for any 240 volt outlets. This basically means if you're using 240 volt stuff, 2 of the 3 wires need to be switched, as opposed to the regular 1. Now, while I know Australia loves its rules, regulations and paperwork, this means technically the car would have been legal as it was, as it's classified as a personnel vehicle. But I know it's going to be used as a caravan, or RV. And as such, I'd like it to be as good as it can be. Because in this case, they're probably there for a reason. And who knows how many camping babies stuck their tongues in previously single-pole electrical sockets. Anyway, these plugs have since arrived, and I've already fitted them. So to those of you who shared your knowledge and brought this to my attention...
You smart. You loyal. I appreciate that. Go buy your mama a house.
The moral of this story is, if something's rubbish, be a critic, because I always want to know where I've gone wrong. Anyway, this took a little bit longer than expected. Now, as usual, I've done a bit of extra work in the background since the last video. Firstly, the non-regulation switches have been switched for double pole switches. Also, in case you hadn't noticed, I now have lights. As you can also see, I've covered the frame on the opposite side, so it looks somewhat like underneath the sofa. You may have already noticed a new addition. Introducing some controversy. This Landcruiser is going to be equipped with propane and propane accessories.
I'm about to bust. Oh, I'm sorry, I thought this was the bathroom. Oh, good lord!
Apparently, burning LPG creates carbon monoxide. And in case you didn't know, that's not so good for you. Now, this doesn't occur if a complete burn happens. Now, carbon monoxide isn't always made. If the propane burns completely, then this isn't the case. However, this isn't always the case in an enclosed space, such as this one. Now, if you're stoichiometrically inclined, you can see what I mean from these 2 combustions here. As you can see, the complete burn produces carbon dioxide, which isn't particularly harmful. But an incomplete burn has this little stowaway here. Now, this appears when you don't have enough oxygen present in the burn, and the result is you might end up a little bit dead. So to summarize, if you start creating this gas in an enclosed space, then you're never going to find out what happens to my electronic RAM. Speaking of which, after lighting your butane soldering iron in the normal way, you can go about doing the wiring on your electronic actuator. For those eagle-eyed among us, try to spot the obviously intentional mistake, which has now been rectified. If you'd like to know how to wire a reversing polarity switch yourself, just watch these last few seconds over and over again in slow motion. Anyway, back to the oven. To mitigate the risks we just talked about, I'm going to be placing the oven as close to the largest door as I can, as well as right beneath a sliding window. It also won't get used unless the doors and windows are open. Now, as we're aware, sometimes stupid people do stupid things unless you force them not to. So to counteract this, I'll be fitting a second wheel carrier here, because I just so happen to have another one lying around from the 76. Because nobody needs 2 spare tyres. Now the reason behind this is to turn this second wheel carrier into something that can hold other things. And in this case, it'll be the gas bottle. Because if you can't use the oven while the doors are closed, then you can't gas yourself. Now this is slight overkill, because it's only a small burner, and something like this is unlikely to do any damage unless it's severely abused. Secondly, it might be uncommon knowledge, but ovens get hot. Combined with a proximity to wood, it could be a recipe for disaster. Now to counteract this, I've left as much of a gap as humanely possible, and minimized any contact with the wood. I've also left about a 100mm gap behind. So time will tell if this is going to be suitable. I'll test it later by turning the oven up to max and seeing if anything melts or catches fire. The car also came with this, so I should be covered. Now another thing this oven needs is a neighbour. Now I'm usually an advocate for good quality equipment, but unfortunately Ryobi is the only company that seems to make something that fits exactly where I need it to. So as much as it pains me to admit it, this is the most ideal solution. Much better. So this little thing is going to be an all-in-one kitchen unit, complete with a water tank, water pump, as well as a sink. So obviously it'll need to be modified to fit all this stuff. So this little unit is going to go here, and as you can see, it's not made of wood, so therefore it might not catch fire from the oven. Now the slight issue is what you might see here. Now that's not a very aesthetic gap now, is it? So what can I use this space for? Now isn't that marvellous? Now at the moment, with the way these off-the-shelf components are slotting together, I feel almost like Ricky Gervais's interpretation of God.
Hold on, we can do something like this. There you go. Hold on, maybe I can do... There you go. You're a daddy longlegs. I'm a what?
Now this tank is only 10 litres, and you're probably screaming at your screen saying that that's not very much water and I'm going to die of dehydration. Well, this is intended to be more of a weekend away vehicle, rather than a this is my home forever. And from my experience, 10 litres is absolutely fine for a few days. A few years ago I took 20 litres for a 10-day trip to Fraser Island and wasn't even close to running out, or turning into human jerky. It also means I'm eliminating the risk of leaving 50 litres of stagnant water when it's not being used, as well as the huge weight saving. And let's be honest, those of you with huge water tanks, when have you ever come close to emptying them on a weekend trip? Unless you're having a water fight or washing your car in the bush. Comment your hatred and disagreement below. Now if any of you are avid watchers, you'll know that I made a short video asking for suggestions of what to do with this space. Now while there were some good suggestions, unfortunately I've had to ignore them all, because I remembered I've overlooked the fridge part. Now I doubt any fridges exist that would fit in this spot precisely, but I found one that fits. But it's a horrible cheap brand. Aww. Anyway, it's arrived. And here it is. It's almost like I planned this. Now the closest suggestion to what ended up actually happening was this one. So you win the prize for today. So with all the formalities out of the way, I'd better actually do something today. Starting with having a go at that kitchen unit thing. So the first thing I'm going to do is attach the water tank. Now in the future, I'll definitely be bolting that in again in a more substantial way, because tech screws are bloody rubbish on sheet metal like this. But here's how a mock-up of the left side of the car is going to look. Now once again, progress has been halted by Australia Post from this point. So the last thing I'm going to do today is finishing off the bed base to be modified in the future. That was a foreshadowing hint. So this is now starting to look like a bed platform. The sofa will fold out like this. Now this removable section is a little bit cumbersome, and it would be quite nice to have something that turns into a table in here, but I'm going to have to go away and have a think about how to do that.